Hi everyone, and welcome to my very first podcast. I am so excited to be here and to have you guys here with me. I'll be honest, I'm feeling a little bit nervous for some reason. I thought that being on camera, showing myself on video was intimidating, but for some reason this is pretty scary. So I'm gonna do the best that I can. If I sound nervous or I mess up, please just bear with me, okay? I've decided to sit here and chat with you guys on my couch. I have some tea with me. I was gonna sit at my desk, but I was thinking, why don't I just sit and be comfortable and chat with you guys, like I'm talking to a friend. So it's a cozy fall day where I am in Canada, Ontario. I'm a blue skies and sun kind of girl usually, but I'm actually really enjoying this weather at the moment. It's gray skies outside, but fall is beautiful here. The trees are different colors. I can see the trees outside my window. I can see green and red and yellow and orange, and it's actually really pretty. So yeah, so I'm feeling cozy, and I'm gonna try and just feel a little bit more comfortable. For this first podcast, I didn't want to dive in and bombard you guys with info. I just wanted to kind of introduce myself, let you guys know a little bit about me and my story and what led me here. I'm sure you guys know my name. Just in case you're new here, my name is Tamryn. I am 30 years old, only for one more day though, because I turned 31 on Saturday. I thought turning 30 was going to be really scary and I was going to feel really old, but I actually really enjoyed being 30, to be honest with you. I feel like as I get older, I feel more secure within myself, and I slowly start to get more confident, slowly. So yes, I'm excited to see what my 30s has in store for me. You may detect a bit of an accent. A lot of people ask me where I'm from. I feel like my accent has actually changed though since being here. I've been living in Canada for 11 years. I'm from South Africa. I moved with my family when I was 19. My brother was 14 at the time. And that was, so it was, 11 years ago. And I know a lot of people think that to move at that age is really scary, and it was. But at that point in my life, I had taken a year off of school. I had finished high school, and I was kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. And when I found out, it was a big shock, but then the more I thought about it, I actually felt excited, and I liked the idea of kind of starting over in a new place. I know it was more intimidating for my brother. He had just started high school, so that was really scary for him, but he's a lot more extroverted than I am, so he made friends really quickly and settled right in. When we got here, we actually arrived in July, which is summer in Canada, and we arrived in a heat wave. I think it was like 40 degrees Celsius or something like that. It was crazy, and I had always thought, and I guess this is just ignorance, but I had always just assumed that Canada is like cold most of the time. So when we arrived here and it was so hot, my brother and I were like, yeah, like, woo, like, this is great. Like, this is not what we expected at all. That is until fall and winter came around and we got the shock of our lives. So we got here, and within a few months of being here, I actually started an aesthetics course, which is doing nails and massage. It's like beauty school, you like learn how to do nails, massage, facials, things like that. And I met some people, and it was really good. And then I met my girlfriend, and that was amazing. And then a lot of things happened in my life. I had a lot of stress and a lot of things to deal with. And I actually ended up moving out at 21, and I feel like a lot of my stress started then and kind of led me on that path towards really experiencing anxiety. Um, I've always suffered with anxiety. I've always been like a really more nervy kind of person. When I was little, I was always like a very anxious kid, like very nervous about things. Um, I did deal with something quite traumatic when I was very young, and I do think maybe that contributed to a lot of my anxiety moving forward. It's something that I do struggle to talk about, so I'll maybe talk about it in a future podcast. But for now, I'll just leave it there. Um, I was always, one of those kids that's like really nervous for school and anxious about like new events and things like that. I didn't realize, I mean, being so young, you don't think of it as anxiety or, oh, I have an anxiety disorder. You just kind of think of it as, oh, like I'm worried all the time, or I don't know. And then, yeah, so that was kind of me as a child, as a teen. In my 20s, I dealt with a lot of stress, and I was okay. I wasn't experiencing full blown anxiety or panic yet, but when I was about 20, I would say about 5 years ago, I started to experience some really severe anxiety and anxiety symptoms and everything that goes with anxiety. If you're listening to this and you struggle yourself, then I'm sure you know what I mean. Um, I was working at the time. I was working as an esthetician, and it was in a mall. I remember it was in a shopping mall, and it's a type of job where you are very like, you have to talk to people face to face, and if you're having a day where you're struggling, you can't just kind of hide away. Like, people make conversation with you, while you're doing their nails or doing a treatment on them. And I started to experience, it all started with anxiety symptoms that I started to experience. Again, I had no idea what anxiety actually like was. And when I started experiencing symptoms, my first thing was to go Google them, and I immediately thought that I have some kind of I don't know, like a medical condition or like some kind of, problem, medical problem. I was dizzy a lot of the time. I would notice that I would go out and I would get very, very dizzy. During these times when I would get dizzy, my heart would really start to race. My head would feel really tight. I would just feel really, really weird, like just like totally out of it. I literally had no idea what was going on. And it's really, really, really scary when you're experiencing all these symptoms and you don't understand what's happening, and you're like you're embarrassed about it, because you're like, okay, well, if I go tell someone, how do I explain it? Because some of the symptoms are really hard to explain. It's kind of surreal, like you feel kind of foggy, and like how do you explain that to someone, right? So, and then so I was working at the time, and it was getting to a point where I was really struggling to work. I would break down a lot. I would cry. Most people didn't know this. I would just do this kind of in private. I would like shake a lot, and I remember the one day okay, so this is awkward, but my fire alarm is going off, so just give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, so I'm back. I guess this is my first podcast. As I said, just bear with me, okay? Um, so I was working at the time, and I was really kind of trying to hide my anxiety away. I didn't even tell my girlfriend. It was just something that I wasn't sure what was happening. And the one day I remember kind of breaking down at work, and one of my coworkers, she was really very sweet, and she had experienced panic attacks. And she took me aside and gave me a hug and said that it really seems like I'm having a panic attack. And I remember my boss, he wanted to, I had a really nice boss at the time, and he wanted to sit down and have a chat with me. And he sat me down and he looked at me with a lot of sympathy, and he said, like, Tamryn, what's going on? Like, are you okay? You just don't seem like yourself lately. Because I thought that I had been hiding it, but I guess it was pretty obvious. And I guess this was kind of like the tipping point for me. I'd been experiencing these symptoms for a while, but it got to a point now where people were noticing, and I felt like it's now affecting my job, right? So my boss sat down with me and he asked me if I would like to take 2 weeks off, and he'll still keep my job for me, but he thinks that I just need to take 2 weeks off to kind of just work on myself and figure out what's going on. And I was extremely grateful at the time, because I knew I could take 2 weeks off and at least my job would still be there. And I remember leaving work that day and calling a cab to go back home, and I was just crying the whole way. I didn't know what was going on still, so I still had in the back of my mind, like, there's something seriously wrong with me. And you start to think all these negative thoughts, like, this is my life, like, how, like, is this going to be my life from now on, you know? So at the time I was just doing a lot of Googling, and I took to heart what my coworker had said, and she told me about panic attacks, and I did some research, and it all started to make sense. Like, okay, so the dizziness, the fast heart rate, all those symptoms, it's definitely a panic attack. So at the time, I didn't know about natural methods or I didn't know anything about anxiety. All I knew was that I had it. I thought I had it. I was dealing with panic attacks, and yeah, so my first instinct was, I have to go to the doctor. I have to get medicine. Like, I can't live like this. I can't have my job like in trouble. I have to get medicine. So I felt a little bit better, thinking, okay, I'm going to go to the doctor. I'm going to talk to someone. Someone's going to understand, like, finally, and I'm going to get a prescription for something that's going to just fix me. So I went to the doctor, and the doctors here are very different than South Africa. In South Africa, it's a way different setting in there. Like, it's just cozier, and you feel more at ease, and the room where you're examined is in a separate area. So first you go and talk to your doctor in, like, just a cozy, comfortable room with, like, a couch, and you talk about your symptoms, and you feel more comfortable, and then you'll go get examined in the separate, like, examining room, right? So here it was very different. It's kind of like you walk straight into this, like, stark white room, which made me feel really uncomfortable. And I remember sitting there, and firstly I waited for a while. They put me in the room. I sat there and waited for a good 15 minutes. But I was like, it's fine. Once the doctor comes, everything's going to be fixed. So the doctor comes in. He barely looks at me. He kind of acknowledges me with a shake of his head. He sits down. He seems like he's in a hurry. Like, I can sense that he's rushing. He kind of sits down, perches on the edge of his chair, looks at me and says, okay, so what's going on? And I said, I've been experiencing all these symptoms. I've been doing my research, and I think that it's panic attacks and anxiety. And he kind of cut me off and said, are you suicidal? I said, no. I don't even remember what else he asked me. Are you, like, 2 or 3 questions, honestly. And I said no. And do you want to harm yourself or harm others? Something like that. I said no. And he said, okay, well, that sounds like you need a prescription for this. And again, I had no idea at the time what it was. It turned out to be an SSRI, which is a prescription medication that they commonly prescribe for anxiety and depression. And he gave me a prescription and he said, here, take this. I don't even remember now, like morning and night, something like that. And thank you and goodbye. And that was it. And I felt kind of deflated. Like I thought that someone's going to talk to me and like be really sympathetic and help me. Like I know that a doctor's not a therapist, but you would expect them to have some kind of empathy with you. But no, he just kind of gave me my prescription and that was it. It's funny because as impersonal as that experience was, I actually left feeling like still pretty good in the sense that, okay, well, you know what, that kind of sucked, but I have my prescription and this is gonna fix me. Like that's all I had in my mind. Like I just wanted to be rid of anxiety. That's it. So I went to the pharmacist right away, got my prescription, and I started on my medication. I think it took a few days. It could have been a week or two. I don't really remember, but it does take a little while to click in. And to be honest with you, my anxiety did get better. But if it's funny because when I think about that time in my life, I don't really remember it that well. Like it's kind of like I was in kind of like a haze. Like it helps you to get rid of that panic, but I was just kind of numb, I think. Like I didn't feel, especially again, like you thinking, okay, something prescribed for depression is going to make you feel extremely joyful or something, but it doesn't do that. Like I just felt kind of like, okay, I can deal with shit, I can deal with stuff, but like that was it. Like I'm a very emotional person, and I feel like it kind of numbed my emotions where I didn't really care so much about stuff. I was just like, yeah, like whatever. Which now, like with everything I've learned, like I know that's not a good thing. The problem with prescription meds is that they just provide a band-aid effect. So they just provide a temporary fix, and they just kind of cover up the problem. It's like sticking a band-aid on a wound, and it's just like, let's not look at that, but it's not actually helping you to get to the root cause of what's going on. Like I said, I knew nothing about anxiety, so I trusted my doctor and I believed that this was it and this was going to fix me. So I was on the meds for 2 weeks, and then I went back to work. After my 2 weeks were up, I was due to go back to work, and everyone was really, really kind and really nice to me. And I spoke to my boss and I told him, I'm like ready to do this. I'm ready to be back. I'm feeling better. And I remember one of my coworkers, she asked me about my anxiety, and she asked me if I went to the doctor, and I told her about the medication that I was taking. And she said to me, oh, my mom has suffered with anxiety her whole life, for years, I don't know how long, but she's on the exact same medication as you. And she said, how many milligrams do you take? At the time I was on I don't remember. I was on the lowest dose that you get. So I told her, and she said, oh, that's a really low dose. My mom is on, and her mom was on like some extremely high dose of the same medication. And I was asking her about that, and she said the way that those kind of pills work is that your body gets used to the dose that you're on, and eventually you'll have to increase your dose gradually over time. So that's what happened with her mom. She started on a low dose like I was, and then she gradually increased her dose over time until she was on this incredibly high dose. And then I remember this really scared me because I had thought of this medication as like this. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was something that was gonna fix me, but I hadn't really thought about it in the long-term sense. I hadn't really thought, oh, I'm gonna need to be on this forever, or oh, I'm gonna have to increase my dose. Like the doctor didn't explain anything to me. I was given a prescription and that was it. So I remember her saying to me, my mom is at the point where she never wants to go off this medication and has been told that to withdraw off the dose that she's on would be very, very difficult. And I remember that really freaking me out and thinking to myself, like, oh, like, I don't want to even go a little bit higher than I'm at right now. I didn't say that, but that's how I felt. But I kind of just put that out of my mind and just decided to keep taking them because I felt like I was able to work, and as long as I could work and make an income, it was good. Like, everything was fine, and I wasn't breaking down and having these anxiety symptoms and Googling all the time and like freaking myself out, right? So I stayed on them, and then I stayed at this job for a while, and then I started to become really unhappy. It's funny because I was on pills, but that's supposed to make me happy, so I guess maybe at this point I was supposed to go on a higher dose. But I started to become just really miserable, and I had to kind of sit down with myself and figure out what was causing me so much unhappiness. And one of the things that I had to admit to myself was that I really wasn't happy with the work that I was doing. Not my boss, not the people that I was working with. It's just the work that I was doing. It was not something that felt fulfilling. And I kind of just saw my future as like this endless path of doing this job that I'm not enjoying, like taking pills, and it just freaked me out. So this was the time in my life when I started to look online for some freelance work, and lots of things happened, but I ended up doing some writing for online skincare companies, like natural skincare companies, and I also did some writing for nutrition companies because I'd always had a passion for nutrition. And it got to a point where I wasn't making as much as I was at my job, but I decided to take a huge risk and just leave my job and just try and focus on the freelancing. And it was around the same time that I made the decision to go back to school and to do a nutrition course. So I started this course here in Canada. I did it at home through the distance program, so I could do it online, and then I could still be working and making an income. And it was around this time that I thought to myself, well, I'm in the perfect spot now to go off the medication. Like, I'm working from home, I'm studying. If I go off the pills and experience anxiety, at least I don't have to go into a job. So I just figured, like, now's the time to do it, because there was just something telling me, like, I don't want to be on pills forever. So I went to a doctor, a new one this time, and she was really nice, and she told me it shouldn't be too hard to wean off such a small dose, and that as long as I do it slowly, I shouldn't experience any major side effects or withdrawal symptoms. So I took her advice and I did it really slowly, and honestly, I was on the smallest dose. I weaned off the way that this doctor told me to, and I experienced the worst withdrawal. I had the worst depression of my entire life. I had insomnia to the point where I was not sleeping at all. Like, I would fall asleep at 6 a.m. in the morning for an hour, and like, that was the sleep that I got. It was a nightmare. My anxiety came back full force, and then on top of it, the not sleeping, it was like, I think back to that time, it was a nightmare. I literally didn't know what to do. I was grateful that I could be at home, but it was just terrible. And the thing that I was really struggling with was not just the anxiety symptoms, but the not sleeping. Like, when you already have an anxiety disorder and then you cannot sleep, it's terrible. You really don't feel yourself. So I remember doing research and looking into, just at this point I was just looking for ways to manage my insomnia. Like, that is literally like all I could think about, is just ways to manage my insomnia. So I came across yoga. Like, I did a lot of research and saw that yoga is supposed to be an absolute miracle worker for insomnia and help you within no time at all. And I tried yoga before, just like on YouTube. I've always felt too intimidated to go to a class, and all the videos that I had found on YouTube, I just didn't enjoy them, and it just didn't feel right. Like it was always like this girl like in all these fancy poses, and I was like there's no way I can do that, and like it just didn't feel comfortable. And then I was kind of just looking for a video one day on YouTube. I was just desperate at this point, and I came across this channel called Yoga with Adrian, and I found a 30-day yoga program on there, and I just decided to give it a go. So the first day was just like a lot of stretching, and the first few days were just kind of stretching, and I realized that I could really relate to her, and I could really relate to this kind of yoga, which is just kind of just the whole motto of it is to just find what feels good for you and for your body. And I really enjoyed it, and within a few days already my insomnia started to get better. So I was really excited at this point. I was like, I've tried something like natural and I'm feeling good. So that was a big push and a big motivation for me. And at this time I was doing my nutrition course, and I was learning a lot there about nutrition and about how food relates to mental health and how it can affect your mental health and contribute to anxiety and depression. And I was just learning a lot. I had just a lot of information coming my way. And it was around this time that I started Instagram, but I didn't post anything on there about mental health yet. I did on and off. I actually have a whole nother Instagram that I made where I would just try and share like positive, uplifting quotes, and I would like share when I was struggling with a panic attack or things like that. This was in 2015. And then probably about, I would say, a year and a half ago or so, I started Honestly Holistic, and I just wanted to post like just everything that I had learned that had helped me with anxiety. I wasn't cured by any means, but I was at a point where I was finding that I was managing it better. So I started my Instagram and I started to post, and I wasn't very serious about it. And I slowly started to grow, and I met some people on there that are amazing. I know some of you guys are listening to this right now, and it just felt so good to have people that you can talk to that also have anxiety and that also know what it feels like to struggle. Like, that was just amazing to me. I used to Google my symptoms all the time, and I had come across some online forums and things like that where people were, talking about anxiety symptoms, and sometimes there would be someone in the forum that would leave a comment that would really help me, but a lot of the time it would just kind of be kind of like a negative place where people would just kind of be feeding off of each other's anxiety symptoms and sharing all the medication that they're on. Or there would be someone in the group saying, oh, those symptoms sound really weird, you should go to your doctor right away. And I would just get freaked out reading it. So it was really good to be meeting people on Instagram that also have anxiety and depression and that also struggle, and just to know that you're not alone. And I really wanted to make my page an uplifting place where you can find information that will help you to feel good and help you to feel optimistic about healing in your own journey. So just recently I was thinking about, I've always had a passion, like I've always wanted to help people. Like, that's what drives me, that's what makes me feel incredible. And I just decided to start a community, my own community, and that's what this is, where it's not just a space for you guys to chat and support each other, but I wanted to do this weekly podcast where I can share information to help you guys. Like, I know this first one is just kind of, you guys getting to know me. But moving forward, I'm really going to be bringing out information that is hopefully helpful to you guys. I love it when you guys share feedback and give me questions and things that you'd like me to talk on. I also want to interview some people, and just this, I have so many ideas. So along with this podcast every week, I wanted to provide you guys with something that you can kind of ponder on or write about or think about over the week ahead until we meet again with the next podcast. And I've called it your inner study. So along with this podcast, I have left a question in the group, and I just really want you guys to look at this question. I just want you to really think about it and just spend your time with it. Like, this is my goal every week, is to either bring out a question or, give you guys something to take home that you can just think about. And all of these things will help you to move forward in your own journey. As my page, if you go on my website, honestlyholistic.com, right on my front page there, it says it all starts with awareness. And that's it. Like, just you acknowledging that you have an anxiety disorder, or that you're at a point where you need help, or you're ready to move forward, you're ready to step out of your anxiety, you don't want it to rule your life anymore. Just that awareness is the very, very first step. I want this to be more than just any other community. I want you to look at it as more than a subscription. I want you to look at this as an investment in your own health. You are absolutely worth it. We prioritize so many things in our lives, and we often forget about ourselves. I want you to make an investment in yourself. So that's why I'm so excited that you're here. I'm so excited to watch how you guys will grow on this journey with me. So I'm not really sure what else to talk about on this. If you guys have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the discussion area. If you're listening to this and you're not yet a member, you can learn more about it on my website. I have the link in my bio on my Instagram page as well, if you want to continue forward and join me and everyone else with the rest of the podcasts. I'm also really excited about the affirmation card I have for you guys today. I'd love to hear what you guys think about that. If you're new here, just in case you don't know, I have a stack of affirmation cards, and I usually just will pull one every day for myself, and just it has a positive affirmation on that will just help me through my day. So I've decided to do a weekly affirmation card draw for the community, and then I share it in an email that gets sent out with this podcast. So today's one was really cool, and I'd love to hear what you guys think of that. I thought it was really fitting. So moving forward, we'll be doing interviews, and I'm gonna do a podcast soon as well with Q&As, where you guys leave me all your questions and I'll just be answering them. I feel like maybe I'm forgetting something, but I felt really scared starting this. I really did. I actually have really enjoyed myself, even though at the moment it feels like I'm just talking to myself. But I've really enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions about this, like I said, you can leave it in the discussion area. I hope I haven't bored you. I just wanted you guys to get to know a little bit about my own journey and what led me here. I will delve deeper into certain things. So I think that's about it. I thank you guys so much for listening and spending these past 30 something minutes with me. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you're looking forward to everything that's to come, and I'll talk to you again next week. Bye.